Okay, we're on.
Yay.
We made it. We did it.
We did it. Um, I'm happy to start because I had the intro suggestion. So my name is Reed, and if I had to be one Octavia Butler character, I would choose Laura or Lauren from the Parable of Talents, Parable Star series, because I just love how prepared she is for everything, like very organized, and I really like being prepared for things, like little bags of like snacks and stuff. Like she would be super into that, and I'm really into that. So I really, yeah, really sure.
Bernadette,
That's a good one. Yeah, that's a good one. I'm Bernadette, and I would say that, but that's totally not who I am in real life. So um, I probably feel closest to Joda from Imago, just in that the whole performative space of like trying to bridge worlds and trying to often be something that I'm not to be acceptable to another group so that that group will, in the bigger picture, engage with another group is something that I really, really resonated with reading throughout this whole book. I want to be organized, but that's probably more my life.
wow. Y'all are like real serious about this. I'm like over here trying to Google my character.
No pressure.
So there is in the Patternist or the Pattern Master quadrilogy, in book number 2, Mind of My Mind, there is a telepath named Carl, and Carl is married to Mary, and Mary eventually becomes like the strongest telepath. But Carl is the strongest telepath before Mary becomes the strongest one. And I really resonate with Carl's role, particularly because it's, yeah, I feel often like I am creating the pathway for the person to come next. It's like how I think a lot about work that I do when I particularly show up in an organization. It's like, great, I have some things I want to do, but it's really setting the stage for someone to come and do the next round of things. And I'm for sure developing my empath abilities. And I think telepathy is like it's like empath life on drugs, which also that literally happens in that series. Anyway.
That series, yeah, I'll have to.
Oh, it's so good. Yeah, it's how I think about the whole world now. Okay, well, maybe we should do that book in the next series of these. So just to say for folks, if you don't yet know, this is video number 3, like video debrief number 3, of this little black sci-fi collective thing that Reed and I have started and are expanding now to welcome Bernadette into this. And we are just going to talk for close to an hour about book number 3 in Octavia Butler's Xenogenesis series. And the book is called... Oh my gosh, I grabbed the wrong book! The book is called Imago. And I came all the way to Seattle with the fucking wrong book.
No. Oh. I've got it.
Okay, we'll just rub it in. Anyway, it's called Imago. Brenda, did you say something? You're muted if you were talking, but if you're good.
Sorry, I said I'm here somewhere.
Oh, that sounds like a little one. Amazing. Well, yeah, we should talk about this book.
Yeah. Oh. So much.
So much.
So like our last couple of calls, I've been preparing for them by like writing down all these big themes that like stuck out to me. But for this one, there's so many like little quotes that really like resonated with me that I just like I was reading as like underline a billion quotes, and that's like all I just like pulled out. Yeah, so I was just looking back at them, and like some of them are just like so like they kind of just like hit you over the head, like they're so strong in ways that I feel like her writing usually isn't so like specific. So like the first one I wrote was talking about like how the Uloi will mate with humans, and how this is different from human mating. Like there was a conversation that said, you know, humans are possessive of mates, potential mates, and they're possessive because like property, mates can be taken from them, and human mates can walk away from each other. And the mates of like Uloi like can't do that. Like, when they start walking away, they're like, "Oh my gosh! Like I'm so chemically bound to this creature, I literally can't walk away." Yeah.
Yeah, that whole thing really messed me up.
Yeah, I think so.
Because on one hand, I was like, "Oh, it's kind of nice." It's like actually the way that people hold like long-term monogamy as a concept up in the world, like that's what people sort of that's the dream, right? It's like you're with your partner forever. But in reality, we know that's not.
Yeah.
I know so few people for whom that is the case. Like I can think of 2 couples who got married and stayed married, and everyone else breaks up or like goes through struggles. In some ways, it's like, oh, cool, it actually works for them. And then on the other hand, I'm like, that just sounds like slavery.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just I don't know, could you imagine the like being chemically like bound to someone in a way where it's like just the physical distance of it. Like you start like literally walking away from them, that you then feel. It sounds like it's like a feeling of like being sick, basically.
Yeah, that's exactly how she described it. It's like the sensation of like deep physical discomfort.
Yeah.
To the point of just needing to go back to them.
Yeah.
What an interesting mechanism.
Yeah. Yeah.
It makes me wonder just about, if for me that gets to the idea of choice. And that comes up in this book actually a couple different ways now that I'm thinking about it. It's like if the choice is not real, like if there's no actual option to choose between 2 things, it just feels like slavery.
Yeah.
And so is it fundamentally a part of being a human, or is it fundamentally a part of being like a self-actualized human, that you be actively choosing between real options? Yeah, it comes up again. I have a quote where it's Where's this quote? Oh no, Bernadette. Where is this quote? Why can't I find it? Oh, so it's on page 148 in the copy that I had. All right, Bernadette's back. So this particular quote, yeah, page 148, I think a human is talking to, someone's talking to Lilith, and they say, "You didn't have a choice, did you?" You know, talking about when she was waking people up. No.
Oh. Oh.
Wow.
Oh,
So adorable.
Those are headphones. We're doing a debrief of your favorite book.
Hi.
We're talking
Hi.
Imago. Say hi. Hi. All right. We're going to go read some more books tonight, okay? No, okay, go eat your fries. Bye.
Oh.
Oh my gosh, I love babies. So cute. Just want to hold all of them.
That's adorable.
So adorable. You know, so just that the person is saying to Lilith, "You didn't really have a choice, did you?" And Lilith says, "Oh, I did have a choice. I chose to live."
Yeah.
And the person says, "That's not a choice. That's just going on." And then she says, "You clearly don't know what you're talking about."
Hmm.
And it must be, I can't remember who, it must be some young human or some resistor. And she's like,
Yeah.
"Look."
Yeah. Yeah, I think this ties back into so much of, like, I wrote that one down also because it ties like all the way back to the beginning of the series when we're thinking about this, like, what were Lilith's choices basically. And it was to survive or like be imprisoned for the rest of her life basically, or just be like a science experiment like the Owen Collie. Then also in this book, like there's this, I feel like she has this like almost dilemma that she sees where she did have some choices about whether to survive or not. But then she also has a choice with like these humans that are like starting to, that are like free of the Owen Collie, like these like pure humans, of whether to like warn them about the kind of how deeply they be attached to the Ululoi. I think it was Thomas and like Judas, where she felt like, oh my gosh, I should warn them that they like are being forever attached to these people, and like these like Thomas and Judas and like their people had done exactly what Lilith had wanted the humans to do, which is like the like run and learn thing, and then she like realizes that these humans had done this, and now they're being like sucked back into the like Owen Collie like vacuum, and she's just like, wow, what to do? Because like her sexless Ululoi child needs these humans to like survive. I don't know. So it's just like everything you're saying. It's like, yeah, it's just this like mess of choices and like options. None of them are good, and the question is like, is it better to have them than to have no choices at all?
Yep. All right, Bernadette, what are you thinking? On that lane, a totally different lane.
No, very much in that lane of the whole space of like the universalism of these choices, right? Like when Octavia was writing, everything was like, let's resist and let's like rise up, and very kind of to your point about the pure humans being like, oh no, you can't be about that kind of performative lifestyle, and you can't give an inch because you don't have to give a mile kind of space. It's just how that shows up even nowadays, and just kind of a universalist place where people are trying to figure out where they fit on the spectrum of like, what are their true values and what's the bigger picture they're fighting for, and is it about self-survival? Is it about all survival? And how sacrificial are you willing to be for the survival of all? And the whole virtualism of those struggles, it just keeps hitting me over and over again as I read through the different fiction movies. It's particularly around like, the notion of choice, especially when those choices are very power-filled, and just the different dynamics of how power plays into what any one person perceives as a choice or not in their lives.
I was just talking with someone about that the other day. I'm trying to remember the exact context. Oh, I was moderating a panel on self-determination, and some of the panelists were basically like reacting to or like rejecting the idea that self-determination, basically they were like, self-determination is overplayed in like the meta or macro sense. They were saying self-determination, it shows up in people's individual decisions, and even in a context where someone's decisions are forced or where someone's hand is played for them, like this particular conversation was about gentrification in China, or like turning village towns in China into tourist villages. And because central government is so strong in China, people who live in those villages, they don't really have a choice. Like, no one talks about moving or not moving as if there are options. It's like, no, the central government has already decided that your village will be turned into a tourist site. And so within that context, what this particular person was saying is like, so then people have to make choices within their constraint set. It's like, okay, well, where am I going to move given that I know I have to move? And is that small choice still self-determination? I think that's just, I had never thought about it. I'd never thought about self-determination still being valid or valuable at that scale. And I guess that's really just maybe an example of what, Bernadette, you were raising. But I really am now going back and forth about the value of that small choice. Like, is it still self-determination if you don't have full range? If you don't have access to a full range of choices, is it still self-determination? I don't know. Anyway.
Yeah.
Other quotes, other ideas? Oh yeah, sorry.
No, it's so interesting. I was just thinking about like this choice set thing of like how like the Owen colleague make decisions like for each other is like they use like ultra hive minds to like come together, and it's like this somewhat deliberative process that then like weighs on like has huge implications for like the individual like choice sets for like the main characters in this book. But in some ways it does like have elements of like democracy and like horizontalness and like power that we would like uphold, yet and still it's like it's very much the people who are not a part of this separation are like utterly powerless. So I was thinking about like his name Jodas, where it was basically like decided like, okay, you're going to the ship now because you're just like freaking out in like on Earth. You just can't handle yourself on Earth. So we've decided you're going to the ship for the rest of your life. The other,
I have a thought, but Bernadette, I wonder if you have
yeah.
a reaction.
I think another thing that comes up for me, particularly in Genesis' case, is the whole kind of diplomacy between sets of decisions, is this space of like how agency is maintained or delivered when you have two groups who might not exactly see eye to eye, but see at least some value in being able to come together. But there's still the power dynamics at play of like who has more power and who doesn't, and how do you come to a space of being able to live together and quite frankly even love together in the space of understanding that those power dynamics are trying to be worked on and need to want to be worked on both sides, but that there's one side that has significantly more to give up in the power structure.
Mm. 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 Oh, I love that point. I'm just like, yeah, it's like it just makes me think, like, would like the Owen Collie be just as happy to?
Oh, Bernadette left. I mean, I'm sure she had like
this one kids.
all right, just has a child. It's like right.
Oh, you're back.
Back.
No
worries.
Yeah, like how one of the, I wonder like
shoot,
so
she's gone again.
Oh no.
She's back again. Oh, and maybe the video's just going away, but she's.
I was just going out. So like the Owen Collie basically gave them a choice of whether or not to move to Mars, and they only did this because, like in the previous book, one of their own said that this needed to happen. Yet they would still, like the Owen Collie, would be just as happy to like close off that opportunity. So like the Owen Collie don't at all need any sort of like their conception of power is not at all like the humans get to decide their own fate, or the humans get to decide like what's best for them. It's like the humans have this contradiction, we get to fix it for them. So even that like choice that they gave to the humans was like, I don't feel like it was really them entering into any sort of like partnership with humans. It's just kind of like, well, we'll do this because one of our own thinks it's kind of necessary, but we think they're just going to destroy each other. You know, I just think it's such a good question, because like throughout the entire book, I'm wondering, like, are there any sorts of like, is there any moment in these like dynamics between like the Owen Collie and the humans where there isn't like an incredibly unbalanced amount of power, or where there's something isn't just like, or it's not just like entirely predatory, like a predatory relationship.
Yeah, it definitely freaked me out. Oh yeah.
No, I'm good. Yeah.
I was just gonna say, there was that one part where we start to learn that I think it's Jodas is like eating food from someone's stomach. He's like stealing food. He's like stealing nutrients from humans. And I was like, oh my God, this shit is way more parasitic than they told us.
Yeah.
Like, I always had the sense that it was parasitic and there were clearly elements, but when that reveal happened, I was like, oh, this just got worse in a way I didn't think it could. You know, especially because they talk about being so like self-sufficient and like we can eat anything. Like we're super efficient consumers of nutrients. We can just like swim in the water and excrement whatever. And it's like, well, if that's the case, like why are you eating my food? Like why are you eating on my stomach? But you know, that's just another point in the power differential.
Yeah.
So huge. And you know, to answer that question, or my thought on that question, I don't think there's ever a moment where the power differential isn't an extreme imbalance. You know, I think Akin in the last book basically put their body in the way of protecting human agency and sending the humans to Mars, or allowing them to have humans to Mars, which maybe I'll come back to, or maybe we can talk about later, is like, what does it mean to be an ally? Or what does it mean to leverage your privilege or leverage your position to support someone else's self-determination? But whether or not we go there, this particular question, like, yeah, I think the power differential is always there. And what's real funny to me is that, you know, the Owen Colley talk about the humans having the contradiction, which is like intelligence and hierarchy not being able to coexist. But I feel like what we're talking about now is this crazy contradiction in the Owen Colley between like their society, like when they hive mind, they have like deep democracy or like democratic structures in ways that humans don't. Not perfect, but still, like up until the books, it seems like there's always a consensus. Like everything comes to consensus.
Yeah.
So the contradiction for me is between that and their relationship with all the species that they colonize, which is just like, species don't have any power. I'm like, that's a fucking contradiction.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Don't come and tell me I'm a contradiction.
Yeah, what was the species that they turned into? Like they're moving, like basically carts. They used to on the
carts.
So how do they feel about that? So I think there was one moment in this book where I did feel like there was some like radical changing in the power dynamics, so that it was entirely in the humans, or for the most part in the humans kind of sphere, but the humans didn't realize that, which is when like Jodas was like basically searching for human mates, and they kept stumbling upon these different humans, and he would like utterly like change himself like physically to be exactly what those humans wanted, like in their like, I think it was like in their fantasies or like deep memories or something. It was like uncontrollable for him. Yeah, they like forced into this like humanness that yeah, like always dictated by the needs of another person. But I don't think humans really recognize. Well, the humans did see that, but they didn't know that like they really had this power to shape them. I don't know.
I wonder. I mean, that's how I read that too. Like they don't recognize their power. I wonder what would have happened if they did. Like, would anything have been different, or could anything have been different?
Yeah, I find myself wondering, like, different in what way. It's kind of like the proverbial fear of like putting people who have been powerless for a long time in power, and the fear that, oh, now they're going to like lord power over us. So like fit it in a way that completely shifts the power dynamic, or at least as a performative, right, veneer of shifting the power dynamic over to humans, or different in a way that actually shares power. And it's like, you get what you need, what we need, and we're all good together. It's like, yeah, I there are many times throughout the novel that I'm like, I wonder what it would be like to actually take a group of humans who've been like, okay, we know we're here for a purpose at this point, and actually give them a purpose other than that and their own self-agency, and if they would still choose from so much time being that purpose, to find a way to still be that purpose, but in a slightly less intolerable way, as opposed to going full out and like, no, we totally don't want to be your reading program. Like, is it enough that you just look and kind of act human and act the way I think you should act? Or is it that you should be looking for something a completely different paradigm to be looking at this?
I do wish there was a next book. Like, what did that new village look like? Because one thing, I don't think this is, well, I don't know. I don't know what Octavia was thinking when she was like getting to the end of each of these series. But the three that I've read so far, it seems like they all have, in some ways, like a cliffhanger-ish ending, which is like, you don't know what the next community is going to look like.
Yeah.
She doesn't solve it for you or us.
This is not a how-to series. Come on. We need help.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny because I feel like in some ways it is a how-to, right? It's like, you know, emergent strategy came from these characters, and I think that there's obviously an immense amount of learning, but it's not like it's not a blueprint, and that makes me sad. But maybe Octavia was like, yeah, that's because that's not a thing that exists. It's like, we actually do have to figure it out every time. If someone were to give you a blueprint, then it would just be oppressive.
Yeah.
Still annoying.
Yeah, I think.
Oh, say it again, Bernadette.
I said we'd just read the blueprint anyway.
Totally.
Yes, I was just thinking a little more about this, like another like thing that I see across her books, that her main characters tend to like have lots of empathy in one way or the another. It's like Lauren was an empath, and it was like basically telepaths in like other books, and then this book, like the Ulai, in different ways. We saw in like this last book, but like, yeah, they shape themselves to be basically in the form of another person. And it's something that like, it really struck me with this book, because I was thinking about like, my partner is, I would consider her to be like an empath. And like, one of the things I see that's like always a big risk for folks who like are incredibly emotionally intelligent is that, like, one, people don't like fully value like that skill, like, ever. Like, the world doesn't really value it. But two, like, they're so like vulnerable to like coercion, or to like just being like utterly shaped by the person and like spaces they are engaging with. Yeah, so I was just thinking about that a lot, because like, the Ulai were, like, super vulnerable to these humans for moments. Like Lauren was like really vulnerable to like every like sense of pain around her. Yet these are also like the most like potential like characters, like driving the entire like world basically. Yeah, just want to
To the point of them being how-to books, the whole space of empathy and being one of the tools that'll drive us forward and get us through is one that, like, in everyday life, I struggle with, not necessarily being empathetic to other people, but like getting people to practice some empathy themselves for situations that we don't have the first clue about. And so, yeah, I think this might be some required reading.
mm-hmm.
Yeah, I really appreciated I guess on that same front, just the ways that even though the structure of the relationships is so different, some of the things that are required in them or the things that make them work are still true to human life. Like even though each child has 5 parents, like there's still a way for children to have connection to parents of theirs that are similar, and there's still things they learn from parents of theirs that are not similar. Yeah, like there's ways that empathy is still a really valuable through line. One other thing that there's one line that I just was so floored when I saw it. It's on page, my notes here, it's on page 125. It's just so simple and so good. The line was, "Helpless lust and unreasonable anxiety were just a part of growing up." And it was, about Jodas's, I think it was the first human that Jodas came in contact with, and was, they were just like torn to shreds by this dynamic and just like completely lost their identity in this human. It's like unreasonable, just like deep lust. It's just a part of growing up. It's like super normal. And I wish that as I think about all the things that are happening in the country right now, like I wish that we had better structures and systems for just acknowledging that that is going to happen, and we need ways to handle it. Mostly what happens is it just doesn't get handled and then gets fucking out of control. And then we have like, obviously people getting hurt in so many different ways. And I feel like if we just, like, if everyone knew that their child was going to go through that, and we could build systems and ways to support people as they go through it and as people around them go through it. I just feel like we don't have to do it. We don't have to do it the way that we're currently doing it. Just fucked up and broken, and deeply insufficient.
That has been something I've definitely said a lot about this lovely country and the particular administration in power right now, is that for all the horrible, twisted, sick things that come down the pipe on the daily, one thing that we should definitely be taking into effect is that they are giving us a blueprint for, like, all the paradigms that don't serve us are really not as unbreakable and as set in stone as we thought they were before, when we were playing nice and playing like, okay, well, this is something that's supposed to be done, and that there is the power. We hold the power to construct a nation in the vision we want to see it. So I am, as a told many other people about the things that come out of this administration's mouth, seemingly with very little thought, but very much uplifted by, like, they're not always going to be in power. And if we don't take the lessons of how to be bold about the things we think are the right things to be doing, then that's on us.
Mm-hmm. I'm gonna make a very feeble attempt to draw this to something in the book, but I wish we could pass on all of our like genetic memories from like all generations past. Then I feel like we have we have the knowledge in of ourselves to do this stuff.
Yeah.
And like we've done this before, like much harder things before. So it's in us. Like maybe it needs to be like unlocked sometimes. But like I just wish I could like have a key to like open up all like the genetic memories from like my ancestors and like have all that knowledge like float in my head like right away.
Oh,
yeah. Yeah, +1 to that. And I there's a lot of people I know who are doing like somatics work, particularly through the generative somatics lane of that stuff, and a lot of what they're learning is based on many people, but one of them is Bessel van der Kolk, who wrote a book called The Body Keeps the Score. It's about how trauma and memory are held in the body as well as the mind. Or maybe, I haven't read it, but it sounds like one of the ideas is that the mind is a way, like the mind pulls memories out of the body into consciousness, but the memories are there whether or not they come into our conscious mind. And doing somatic work can allow you to tie your consciousness more tightly to your body. Anyway, I just bring that up to say, like, I really think and believe that, you know, read to your point, like we do have the memory, we have the body memories of doing things like this and harder things. And, you know, now we're learning a lot more, like science is catching up to that wisdom of, you know, there's the, what's it called? Epigenetics.
Yep.
It's like we transfer trauma and experience through our genes, because like certain genes get turned on and turned off in situations, and then we pass those genes on to our kids. And so in some ways that's one very real manifestation of our bodies literally know what it's like or what it has been like. But the gap is like, how do we get that into the consciousness? I feel like that weird little heart thing that the Owen Kali have, what's it called? Like it's got a weird name.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
It's like some squishy name.
Yeah, so they store everything.
Yeah, where they store all of the genetic memories or like all the DNA, all the materials and things.
Yeah.
You gotta figure out how to like activate those.
Yes. Yeah. Oh my gosh.
It only gets mentioned a few times, but it's also so bizarre.
Yeah. Oh, Yashi.
Yashi.
Yeah.
Yashi.
Yes.
Well, we're closing in on our time.
Yeah.
Already. So I guess the question, maybe we'll do one final question and then talk about what's next.
Yeah.
Okay, so anyone have an idea for a closing question or closing prompt?
Hmm.
All of mine are way big. And way too big for like something.
No, you should do it. You
I
should
want
do it.
to colony, and I want to know like the final existence that are left on Earth. Like, what's in store for them? Like so many other questions, but hmm.
Okay, maybe this is a hopeful question. Or not maybe. It's explicitly a hopeful question because I feel like hope is an important thing right now. In this book, what is one either specific situation or like what's one arc of a character or arc through the story that gave you hope for our species?
I'll say, for me personally, I'm Black. Hi. I've been married to a white guy and have two kids. One of who is Black through and through, and the other one who is Black and white biracial. Both of them adopted, but like the arc kind of getting to this end state of looking at a like hybrid race kind of concept of there's always going to be this power dynamic there, but is there I'm hopeful that there is a way that even with the power dynamic not being the race, particularly in between Black and white or Oankali and humans, that there is still ways to find love for one another and to find a way to coexist together. So I also want to force them to be like, give me my utopia, but I do feel like we're pushing closer towards. So like in my worst moments, the acceptance of the power structure, but in my best moments, a re-recognition of what it mean to have a whole new concept of power between the two.
I would say it is kind of the arc of Jodas's sibling. Was Aor? It sounds like the wind flew. Aor, who basically like loses himself and becomes something that its family does not like recognize, and it's through like the sheer will of its like family and like sibling and trying to determine like how to bring it back from like basically like utter like lack of identity, like self, like loss of self, that Aor is able to like regain its what was itself, what was its true self, and through its support of its family. I really appreciated. Even though it's kind of a messed up way where they had like capture humans, like like kidnap humans basically. But I still appreciate the thought of your family can help anchor you back to who you are.
I think for me, my arc is the arc that gives me hope is Lilith. And it's really just, I think this came up before when I was talking about the opening question. Like Lilith's approach to survival is the learn and run approach. Where it's like survive as long as you can, learn as much as you can, run when you have learned enough. You know, and I think that's sort of how I think about a lot of things. It's like, yeah, I may not be able to see the door, but I know that I can learn where I am, and eventually create opportunities for transferring knowledge to the young ones and giving them protecting them enough to give them space to run. They're like, get the fuck out. Whatever. Yeah. Or make it new and better.
Yeah.
Whew. Okay, so what are we doing next? What's happening? Ideas? Thoughts?
I mean, I definitely want to keep doing this. I think it's just what do we read? And it might be hard to find something that none of us, all three of us haven't read, the four of us.
Yeah.
I am literally just realizing right now that I've read all three of her major series.
Woo!
I thought that there was way more.
No.
Shit.
I know. That's my reaction too. I'm like, no.
Where's the rest?
Yeah.
Okay, well, I haven't read, speaking selfishly, I haven't read Fledgling. Have you all read Fledgling?
Look it up.
I think it's about vampires.
No, definitely not read it.
Okay, can we do Fledgling?
Yeah, I haven't read it.
Oh no, my connection's acting weird.
Mm-mm.
I'm gonna drop my video.
I know you're also considering the Binti series that was called.
Oh yeah, I'm reading Nnedi Okorafor's Binti trilogy. It's really good. It's also really fast.
Is it?
Yeah, they're really short. They're like, the first one's I think 100 pages. The next one is maybe 120 or 130, and the next one is like 150, 160.
Oh, that's super short.
Who's it by?
Nnedi Okorafor. It's Nnedi OKA. No. Okay. Okorafor. I can type. Nope.
Got it.
Yeah.
And then EDIOKORAFOR.
Yeah. I don't know. I could type it. I just couldn't say it.
Of course. Is there a particular one we want to read?
I mean, I'm definitely down to read that trilogy or Fledgling, or maybe we could. No, we should decide now. Let's just decide now. I'm fine either way.
I think
You have. Oh, read. Yeah, go.
I think I'm a little bit more into Binti, but I'm also okay either way.
Okay.
Yeah.
Bernadette, do you have a sense?
Binti.
Okay. Binti number 1 it is. Wait,
Yeah.
should we do the 3 books separately, or do we want to do all 3 in one? I'd prefer separately, but they're pretty short.
How about we do them separately and maybe closer together in time of debriefing?
That sounds good to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
So book one.
Book one.
Awesome.
All right, and we'll figure out on email our debrief flow.
Cool.
Cool. Having me, guys.
Yeah.
Yay.
And all
Thanks for joining and your kid.
Cool.
That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Lovely.
All right, catch y'all
All right.
later.
Yep.
Bye.
Peace.
Bye-bye.